Hola, it's Beto here for Tested by Fire Part 2. Today is Sunday, March 3rd, 2024. I'm going to go ahead and tag some people so we can get a crowd going for this live show. I'm also going to do a brief introduction. So if you already watched Tested by Fire Part 1 and you're now watching the recorded video, feel free to go ahead and fast forward a few minutes because what I'm going to talk about here, well, first of all, I'm going to tag some people, but what we're going to talk about, the introduction and everything, is what I shared last week. So feel free to go ahead and fast forward a few minutes if you watched last week, because again, I'm going to give the introduction again, talk a little bit about myself. So feel free to go ahead and fast forward if you're watching the recorded video and you watch Tested by Fire Part 1. And again, I'm just tagging some people so we can get our live audience going here. I'm just inviting everybody. Not sure who exactly wants to join, but now they're invited, so they can't say they weren't invited. This usually gives me only so many, so I'm not inviting everybody to watch, but I am inviting quite a few people. So I think, let me see, were they giving me more? Yeah, there's a few more I'm going to go ahead and send, and then we'll stop this. So just a few more. Okay, so almost done here. Just a couple more minutes. Want to invite a few more people, and then we'll go ahead and move forward. So just a couple more people inviting so we can get our live audience going. So just bear with me a few more minutes and we'll get going here. All right. So a couple more people, get these invites out. And then we'll get going. Oh, they gave me a lot of people to invite this time. All right, I think that's enough. We should get a good live audience now. All right, we already got people watching. Diana, my neighbor, thank you for joining. I believe you watched the one on Instagram Live. Now you're on Facebook. I received your claps, so thank you for watching. Thiemalu, shout out to Thiemalu. Thank you for watching. I'm going to put these down for a second. And I'm going to start by introducing myself, introducing the episode, and then we'll get going into the content of today's show. But thanks again for all those watching live and all those watching on the recorded video. Hola! Hola! Happy Sunday. My name is Beto. I am your daily divinity coach. I'm also a recent burn survivor. A recent burn survivor with a miraculous story of hope and survival. I'm also a motivational speaker and available to share my story. If you want any information about my motivational speaking, my burn story, please visit my my background. Please visit my website at dailydivinitycoach.com. Again, that's dailydivinitycoach.com. Lydia, hello. People are joining right now. I'm getting excited. This is great. Thank you for all your support and for watching this show, especially those watching live. And anyhow, I'm also a spiritual counselor. I hold 2 master's degrees in theology, divinity, one from Harvard, one from Yale. It's actually what brought me out to the East Coast. I'm originally from California. I came out to the East Coast, to Boston area to attend graduate school. During my youth, I was schooled in the law of attraction. So positive affirmations, scientific prayer, critical thinking, speaking things into existence. This is what my mother taught me. So while all the other moms were, teaching their children how to be ballet dancers or pianists or, I don't know what else, but whatever else there is out there, scientists, mathematicians, my mom was teaching me how to be a spiritual warrior. That's what she taught me. That was how I grew up from when I was little. My mother also educated me in the supernatural. So performing miracles, manifesting abundance, exorcising demons, restoring life, faith healing, right? Angels, demons, all that stuff. That's what my mom taught me. That's how I was raised. That's how I was brought up. I am originally from the San Francisco Bay Area, and I now reside in Cambridge, Massachusetts, just across the Charles River from Boston. So I'm here in Boston. I am a single father of 2 grown sons. My sons are grown now. And I'm a recent empty nester after the baby, Coltrane, went off to college. He's a freshman at Holy Cross, about an hour outside of Boston in Worcester, Mass. So again, today is Tested by Fire, and this is part 2. Today is Sunday, March 3rd, 2024. Last week I shared my story, and I'm going to do it again today. But last week it was about the what, the where, and the when of my burn story. Today I'll speak to the how and the why. All right, so the how and the why. But last week was the what, the where, and the when. This week is the how and the why. In addition, I'm going to answer your questions because I've had questions that have come to me, and I want to make sure I address those questions. But before we get into all of that, I would like to, again, just like last week, express my gratitude, my forever gratitude for the love and support I have received since my burn. I've received literally like 1,000 messages of people praying for me, thinking of me, sending out healing vibes. And I'm so grateful for all those messages. The phone calls began pouring in as soon as my son Coltrane sent out the notification. I escaped the fire with just a pair of jeans and a t-shirt, no shoes, no phone. Before I was taken to the hospital, I borrowed a neighbor's phone, and I called my ex-wife and I said, I'm in bad shape. They're taking me somewhere, I don't know where. And so my son Coltrane, he's trained in high school to be an EMT. He was actually a senior year. He spent part of the day on an ambulance. And so he called around, he knew where the burn units were, and he called around, where they might take me. And he found me at Mass General Hospital in Boston. And I'd only been there a little while. I was in the ER, and he came, and he was there. And I shared the story about him coming in and helping relieve my anxiety. He was unbelievable, did an unbelievable job through it all, giving me the support I needed. He also received phone calls himself. Our mayor, Cambridge Mayor Siddiqui, and our city council member Paul Toner, who's a dear friend of the family. His son Jack and my son Coltrane, they grew up together since kindergarten. They were classmates. And so city council member Paul Toner, Cambridge Mayor Siddiqui were on the phone with Coltrane and lending their support, which is wonderful. I received so many phone calls while I was in the hospital, so many that I literally could not get to them all. But I am so grateful for those phone calls. If I didn't get to talk to you, just know it's not because I didn't want to speak with you. It's because I was probably in the shower scrubbing my wounds, which is so painful. The pain is indescribable. But I was probably in the shower scrubbing my wounds, or I was walking up and down the hallway because I was walking 3 to 4 hours a day, so that to starve off the pneumonia. So again, I wasn't able to get to all the phone calls, but I'm greatly appreciate them. I know a couple people told me, Bethel, I called 3 times. Again, apologies, but do know that I felt your love and support. I still get check-in calls and texts to this day, and I'm very grateful. It just wasn't when I was in the hospital. People continue to call and text, and now I got my cell phone. I got a new cell phone, so I'm able to receive those texts and phone calls a lot easier than when I was in the hospital, and all I had was the landline to rely on for communication. Local friends and family drove to the hospital to visit me when I was in the ER, in the burn unit, in the ICU. Healy, Dave, Kathleen, Sherry, Coach Wasset, Claudia from Orizaba, from Mexico, who was in town, cousins Jamie and Kim. Thank you so much for coming out and visiting me when I was in the hospital. I know it wasn't easy, right? You didn't know what to expect when you saw me, and I did not look good. I was a mess. But you came and you spent time with me, and that meant the world to me. The visits continued. After I was discharged from the hospital, I was sheltered temporarily in a hotel because my apartment was condemned, the whole building was condemned. Me and all my apartment mates were sheltered in a hotel, and people continued to visit. My neighbor Becky, Rosie came out, and others of the already aforementioned who visited me in the hospital also came again to visit me in the hotel. My neighbor John Davis, he visited with me even before I went to the hospital. He was walking his dog when the fire and everything happened, and he saw the fire trucks and the ambulances, and he saw me walking toward the ambulance barefoot, burned, and he spent time with me, and that meant a lot to me. Because John and I used to coach soccer. His daughter and my son Coltrane, they were in school together since kindergarten, and so I've known John and his family for a long time, and so it meant the world to me to have somebody there, to have John there with me, right after I was burned and before I was even put in the hospital, put in the ambulance to go to the hospital. My colleagues were so amazing through this all. Their calls came as soon as I was in the ER, as soon as notification went out. They talked to Coltrane. Coltrane was unbelievable. They told me, Coltrane, your son is so mature. Coltrane and Wisdom, they spoke with both of them. So mature, the way they handled everything, their communication with us, the timeliness of the communication, their maturity. They just said so many wonderful things. So those calls started coming right away. And I remember vividly my colleagues saying, what can we do to help? And I said, well, my firstborn, Wisdom's coming out from California to be with me, but I have no place for him to stay. My apartment's condemned, and so they took up an offering, and people donated their hotel points. And so Wisdom was able to fly out from Boston, and he had a place to stay thanks to my colleagues for 2 weeks. He was here for 2 weeks. He stayed at a Marriott, then a Holiday Inn, and a Hilton, because my colleagues, some of them had Hilton points, some had Marriott points, and some had Holiday Inn points, and they all wanted to donate, or so many of them anyhow. And so he was able to stay for free for 2 weeks and be here with me. And we both, Wisdom and I, are so very grateful for that. My colleagues also sent the care package. Before I got in the ambulance, they cut off my t-shirt, so all I had was my jeans on. And my jeans were soaked in smoke. They're just horrible. So I couldn't wear those out of the hospital. And I had no shoes. So I literally had nothing to wear out of the hospital. And so my colleagues foresaw this, and they put together a care package. They sent me clothes. They sent me sweatpants and a hoodie or a sweater and flip-flops, some shoes. So I had something to wear out of the hospital. Otherwise, I had nothing to wear out. And so very grateful for my colleagues. Coltrane, he posted a GoFundMe here on Facebook, and the donations came pouring in, and from so many people, too many to name. I'm sorry, I can't name everybody. There was just so many people, but do know Coltrane and myself were very, very grateful. We lost everything that day. Both of us, Coltrane lost everything, I lost everything, and those donations made such a difference. We're so very grateful, and I wish I could name everybody, but it would take the whole episode. But do know, we're very grateful. Donations came from organizations too, including the Cambridge Family YMCA, my local chapter of the YMCA, where I train regularly. They have a boxing gym there. Dave, my workout partner Dave, the chairman of the board, Cambridge Family YMCA donated generously. They made a donation. The College of the Holy Cross donated. They actually bought Coltrane a winter coat and winter boots, because again, we lost everything. But the community came out and they supported us, and the love, and it was just amazing. I'm almost in tears right now, trying to express my forever gratitude. It was just amazing the way everybody came together. This, what I'm wearing right now, is a t-shirt from the burn unit. It says Ellison 14. So the Mass General Hospital, where I was for 8 days, 7 nights, the burn unit is on the 14th floor. They call it the Ellison floor. And this is where I was after my burn, where my recovery started for those 8 days and 7 nights. And I'm going to turn around so you can see the back of it. The back of the t-shirt says the burn unit. I think it's either MGH or Mass General Hospital. But this is the back of the t-shirt. So before I left the burn unit, I asked the nurses, because I seen them walking around. They have different t-shirts. I think they get a new one every year. And I said, can I get one of the burn unit t-shirts? And so when I was leaving, they actually gifted me a t-shirt. So I'm wearing this in honor of the staff there at the burn unit at Mass General Hospital and all the wonderful care that I received while I was there. So we're going to start with your questions, and I'm going to start with this question because it's one of my favorite ones that came. And this is actually a question from a fellow burn survivor. So the New England Peer Support Group, we meet monthly on Zoom, and then we have face-to-face meetings. So this burn survivor, my fellow burn survivor here in New England, we had met on Zoom, but we had never met in person until this one day in December. And I meet him, and we start talking, and he says to me, Beto, who is your plastic surgeon? And I was like, whoa, I don't have a plastic surgeon. I was blessed. I didn't need, graft surgery or plastic surgery. And so he said this to me because I think he felt like that. He had a lot of empathy, right? Because at that point I'm thinking, oh my God, do I really belong here, right? I mean, I know I was burned bad. I was nearly burned to death. I was, suffered from a collapsed lung and cyanide poisoning and impaired visions and severe, burns to my scalp and my face and my arm, my hand, my feet. But, I never needed surgery. I never had graft surgery, plastic surgery. So I was, to be honest, transparent, I was feeling like, do I belong, right? I know I belong, but do I belong? Because, so many people in the group, they've had, dozens of surgeries, right? They have, they talk about their plastic surgeons. They share stories about surgery and plastic surgeons and this and that. I didn't, it wasn't required that I endured that. And he looks at me, he says, you know what, Beto? He said, you didn't require surgery, but he said, you remember everything. He said, so many of us, blacked out during our burns. We don't remember. So PTSD is not a thing for us, but you do remember. You have all that emotional trauma of those vivid memories. And so that made me, it made me feel better. He expresses empathy. And I'm like, no, I do belong here. This group is mine, right? I took ownership at that point, and I didn't feel, I wasn't questioning anymore whether I belonged or not. The nurse practitioner in the burn unit, the head nurse practitioner, she had a great sense of humor. She was always smiling like me. The nurses used to say when I was in the burn unit, they're like amazed. They're like, you're in incredible pain. You almost die. You have all this stuff going on, and you're smiling. Like I was always smiling, and she was like me. She's always smiling, very lighthearted, even though she's dealing with tragedy everywhere around her, right? And the nurse practitioner one day comes in my room, and she said, Beto, she said, she's a lot of people pay a lot of money for this. And what she meant is that I got a free chemical peel, right? All this is new skin, and there's people who go in and they pay a lot of money for new skin, right? For chemical peels, and I got it free. Again, she was being lighthearted, and I laughed, and it was really funny. And so anyway, that's that first question. Second question, this actually came from Thea Malou. After last week's episode, part 1 of Tested by Fire, Thea Malou called me. She said, Beto, she's like, oh my goodness, you look so good. And she said, your handsome is coming back. She said, I was concerned. I didn't know what I was going to see because she hasn't seen me since the fire. And she said, I saw those pictures you posted, and oh my goodness, I thought, you're going to look a wreck. And she's all, I was so grateful to see you and see how well you're doing. And then she posed this question, how is it that you healed so quickly and so well? Well, number one, it was the support, right? The support I received from you all. Your prayers, your love, your generosity, I felt it, right? I felt that support from you all, from my sons, great medical care. But it's also my belief, right? My belief system. Like I shared just a minute ago, I was smiling through it all, and people were amazed, like, how is this guy smiling? But I did. I smiled through it all because I knew, right? And I taught this online here on social media. I knew and I believe and I practiced that the body heals itself. I knew my body was going to heal itself. It has that capacity. So I was never worried. It actually never crossed my mind that I was going to get infections or that I was going to get pneumonia because of my belief system. Also, I had strategies, right? I put some strategies together. One of them was I questioned the emergency room doctor, right? The head doctor, his name was Ali. I questioned him when they wanted to intubate me, right? I remember from COVID, people, going through intubation and coming down with pneumonia. And so I questioned that decision. Ali called down the surgeons from the Ellison 14th floor, and they evaluated me and they agreed with me. They told Ali, no, we agree with the patient. We don't believe he needs intubation. So that was part of it, right? A strategy, right? No intubation, right? No risk of what they call ventilator-associated pneumonia. I didn't remember that term last week, but I wrote it down so I remember this week. So no intubation, no threat of ventilator-associated pneumonia. So that was a big deal, right? All other strategies. I covered the mirrors, right? I asked the nurses, please, cover all mirrors, blankets, towels, cover the mirrors. The reason why is because I didn't want to see myself, not because I was, frightened. I didn't want to see myself the way I was at that moment. I wanted to visualize how I was before the burn because I believed that was going to help me heal quicker, right? The visualization. And so I didn't see myself until right before my release. I spent a week just remembering how I looked, and that helped, right? That visualization helped. I eat vegan, right? So when I was in the hospital, I was eating very healthy vegan food, right? They had a vegan menu, right? Every day, oatmeal, hummus. And then my sons brought me fresh berries. My neighbor who works as a CNA there in the hospital, she came to my room. I heard about what happened to you. What can I do to help? Can you bring me fresh bananas? I had fresh bananas, fresh berries, the oatmeal, the hummus, and then my son would bring me raw nuts and raw seeds, right? Sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds, cashews, almonds. So I was feeding my body with all these healthy foods. The nurses were a little worried. They're like, are you getting enough protein? And I explained, the body doesn't need as much protein as we think it does. But I am getting enough protein with the hummus and the almonds. Now, when I was released, everything accelerated, right? My healing accelerated because I'm what they call an ostro-vegan. So I eat oysters and vegan. The belief system is that oysters don't have, a face, they don't have eyes, a nose, a mouth. So are they really animals? So I eat oysters, and I'm in Boston, right? Some of the best oysters in the world here in Boston and New England. So I was able to add the oysters because when I was in the burn unit, there's no oysters on the menu, and also my sons don't know how to shuck oysters the way I do. So I couldn't ask them to bring me oysters and shuck them and whatnot. So, but when I got out, after those 8 days and 7 nights, I started eating oysters again, and things really accelerated. My healing accelerated. Also, when I was in the burn unit and today, but especially in the burn unit, it was water only, right? There are other patients around me who are drinking, I don't know what, juices and sodas and sugars and sugary stuff and sugary drinks. But me, it was just water only. And even today, at 99% of what I drink is water. So that helped, right? That was a strategy, But again, it's really a lifestyle. That's just how I live. Next question, Beto, were you scared? People wanted to know, about fear. What was I scared? That was the question. I was actually, in all transparency, I was scared twice. I was scared when they did the cornea check. So they did the eye exam. When I was in the ER, they called down the eye doctor. They did the eye exam to see if there was cornea damage. And so for a couple minutes there, I was scared. I'm like, please God, no cornea damage. And thank God there was no cornea damage, right? No, my eyesight was going to come back. And slowly but surely during those 8 days, it did start coming back. But it wasn't until the very end, right before I was discharged, that I was able to see letters and numbers again. But it did, improve every day. So thank God there's no cornea damage. My eyesight's come back. And then also I got scared when the team of 13 came around my room there in the inpatient burn unit, and they did an exam, and they told me, if you stay another night, Bethel, it's because you're going to need skin graft surgery, because they're worried about this wound here over my bicep, because it was what they call a deep burn 2. Burn 3, absolutely, you get skin graft surgery. So, but for a lot of deep burn 2s, the prescription is also skin graft surgery. They came the next day, and everything was okay. I didn't need the skin graft surgery, but that was hard to hear him say that. That was hard, because up until that moment, I didn't want to leave. I didn't want to leave the burn unit because I was getting such great care, and I was worried, where am I going to go? I didn't know where I was going to go. My apartment's condemned. How am I going to, care for myself? But, I was discharged, and I did get traveling nurses, and they taught me how to care for myself. Occupational therapists came. But I was worried that night. I was scared. And so I prayed. I prayed to God, and I reached out to my mom again, right? My mom who came down, my guardian angel, and came down to save me. And so now she's my guiding angel, right? And I reached out to her. I prayed to God, and I received the vision there in my bed in the burn unit. I received the vision. And the vision was this. My mom, she was pushing me. I was in a wheelchair, and she's pushing the wheelchair, and I'm in the wheelchair. And all of a sudden, she pushes it really hard and then yanks back the handles. And I go flying out. I went, shh, flying out of the wheelchair, and I, boom, boom, land on my 2 feet in one of those superhero stances. And I was like, whoa, and it's a very vivid vision, right? I was like, whoa. And then she took the wheelchair, and she tossed it, handles over wheels, like this, right? Down this deep, dark abyss. I couldn't see the end of the abyss. It was deep and dark. And boom, the wheelchair goes down, 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 down. And so the message was clear, right? That I was going to be fine. I was going to recover 100%. And so after that, I didn't fear anything. I'm like, no, we're good, right? I saw the wheelchair go down the abyss. I did one of those superhero poses. We're all good, right? My mom, my guardian angel is now my guiding angel, and she's saying we're going to be good, and we're going to be good. So after that, there was absolutely no fear. Another question that came, Beto, have you tried alternative strategies for PTSD? Because I'm still dealing with the emotional trauma. When I was in the burn unit that first night, I woke up around 4 a.m. With a dream that I was back on that hallway floor, right, burning to death, and it was vivid. I mean, I was back there, and I ended up pacing the hallways from like 4 a.m. to like 6:30 a.m. or something. So I finally, fell back to sleep out of exhaustion. And the psychiatrist came and talked to me and said, this is normal. It's just your brain processing everything. Had another PTSD episode when I was in the hotel upon my discharge. There was a fire in the kitchen, the hotel kitchen. It was nothing. It was extinguished rather quickly. But, the alarms went off, and boom, I was right back, in my apartment again, trying to get out of, the apartment fire. And now I'm in the hotel trying to escape. So those were, 2 really bad ones. But, I've had a couple nightmares here and there, and other couple things happen. So people want to know, what about alternative strategies? So here's the answer. No, I haven't used any alternative strategies for PTSD. The reason why is the burn survivors, and I trust them, because some of them, it's been 40 years, right, since they're burned, 30 years, 20 years, 10 years. They've been through everything I've been through. And so they teach us, number one, you got to have peer support, and I do, right? I'm in the Burn Survivors peer support group. Monthly Zoom calls. We have our face-to-face. We had a couple face-to-faces in December. We're going to have more soon. So that's the number one, the peer support. And then they also teach share your story. So we share our story in the burn survivors group. So, everybody takes their turn. My name is Beto. I was burned 4 months ago, 5 months ago, and then we share our story, what we went through. And it's a secure, safe, right, supportive environment. But they also teach, share your story with others, right, outside the burn survivor group, which I'm doing this Sunday here live on social media, and I did it last Sunday, because it brings hope. It brings hope and inspiration to others, and then it also brings healing to us, right, the burn survivors. So, they have the formula. I'm following the formula. I appreciate all the concern and, the ideas and suggestions. But no, I have not tried other alternative strategies. And the healing's going well. It's a journey, but the healing's going well. And I had that vision, so we're getting 100% very soon here. Next question. Beto, did you ever feel sorry for yourself? Great question. The answer is no. My mom, I talk a lot about my mom. She's central to my burn story. My mom, as I said earlier, shared earlier, she raised me up to be a spiritual warrior. And she taught me this from a young age. She taught me this. I'm not kidding. I was a kid. Other kids are out there, I don't know, racing bikes, right? Or surfing waves in California where I grew up. I was taught by my mom to be a spiritual warrior. And she taught me this. She used to always say, Mijo, spiritual warriors have no time for pity parties, right? No time to feel sorry for yourself. And if you watched last week, and if you didn't, you can watch the recorded video. It's here, posted on Facebook. When I was burning on the floor, losing consciousness on the hallway floor of the apartment building, my mom showed up, right? My guardian angel. She's deceased, but she showed up. God permitted her to come down from heaven and to save me. But she didn't raise me from the ground. No, instead she gave me that stern look that she used to give me when I was a kid. Like, Mijo, you get up on your own 2 feet, and then I'll help care for you. And so I rose up on my own 2 feet, and then she helped guide me out of the burning building. But that's who she was. That's how she raised me. So yeah, no time for pity parties. There was no time to feel sorry for myself. I did feel bad for my 2 sons that they had to see me in such a weakened state. But they stepped up and they matured, and I've heard so many wonderful reports of how they conducted themselves during that time. So yeah, no pity parties. Beto, how are your neighbors? Great question. So Diana, who I talk to the most, she's my neighbor. She lived right across the hall from me, just a few paces from where I lived, her front door, my front door. And Diana has had some health-related problems from the fire. She wasn't, she didn't have to spend time in the burn unit. She wasn't transported directly, in the ambulance to the hospital like I was. But she recently met with her ear, nose, and throat doctor. She shared this with me. And, there are some concerns, but she's not, hospitalized. She didn't have to be hospitalized. There's just some concern that she's working through with her doctor. And she's going to be fine. She's going to be okay. Bob, another neighbor of mine, he lived on the 3rd floor. I was on the 2nd floor. The fire happened on the 1st floor. He was injured, but he wasn't burned. It wasn't directly related to the fire. What happened is Bob was unable to escape his apartment, and he wasn't directly underneath the fire, so he had more time to decide what to do. And so he was able to wait for the firefighters to arrive, and they put the ladder up to the 3rd floor, apartment window, and they guided him down the ladder to safety. Well, as the firefighters were guiding him to safety, Bob received a wound. He was hit over the head with one of the firefighters' axes, and that caused the wound, and so he had to go to the hospital to get that wound fixed. So it wasn't, he wasn't in the burn unit with me. He wasn't burned. It was just a wound caused by the firefighter's axe. He's okay. He was released from the hospital, fairly quickly, and he's doing fine. And him, Diana, and myself are looking forward to moving back. Our apartment building was condemned, but it's being fixed up, and they said, 12 to 18 months, we should be able to move back in. So the 3 of us are looking forward to that. What about the others? So there were 16 units, right? 16 families. So there's a lot of us. The others that I've talked to, and I haven't talked to everybody, but I talked to nearly everybody. and they tell stories of financial devastation. I had renter's insurance, but it was minimal. Like it was the least you can get, right? Because I never thought I would lose everything. I just said, give me the minimal, add it to my car insurance. I used to have homeowner's insurance because I used to own, but here in Boston, I was just renting. I'm by myself, right? I don't need a lot of space. Coltrane comes to visit now. So I didn't need a lot of space. I say, I just rent. And I like being in the city too. So I got the minimal. Added to my car insurance. I wish I would have got more because the insurance did not cover all my losses. It covered a small fraction. But with that, with the GoFundMe, we're going to be okay. We're going to stay solvent. We've stayed solvent thanks to your generosity, thanks to that small bit of insurance. But a lot of my neighbors, they did not have. Actually, I was the only one that had renter's insurance. So they tell me stories of financial devastation, and it's heartbreaking. Also, they share stories of emotional taxation. There are children that lived in the apartment building. There are seniors, and they talk about the emotional taxation. So, they're working through all of that. Some have told me that they do plan to move back, and some have told me that they don't want to go back. But we're all housed, right? We all have new places to live. And so there's the answer to that question. Next question, Beto, how did the fire start? Great question. Here's the answer. It depends on who you ask. So if you were to ask my neighbors, and there were 2 eyewitnesses, not me because I was burning on the floor to death, but there are 2 eyewitnesses. And if you were to ask my neighbors, they would tell you that it was a meth lab explosion. They believe that the resident in the apartment below me was cooking meth and that there was an explosion, and that's, what lit up the apartment building. And they believe that wholeheartedly. The fire investigator believes something else, and this is what's in the official fire report, which I've read, and I've actually met with the fire investigator, the fire captain who investigated the fire, face to face. We met, we sat down, Coltrane was with me. He says that it was an e-bike explosion, that an electric bike exploded, and that's what caused the fire. So there's 2 different stories there, right? There's, was it a meth lab? Was it the e-bike explosion? The official reports the e-bike explosion. There's eyewitnesses who still to this day believe it was a meth lab explosion. The fire investigator did say that there were drugs. There were drugs found in the apartment below me. The person who lived below me, he was a professed recovering addict, but we knew he was still doing drugs because there were people visiting his apartment all day, all night. Cops were coming all the time. They're always partying and stuff. So there are drugs. There were drugs found in the apartment. There were used needles, right? They used to shoot their drugs, right? As well as, I don't know, how, what other ways they ingested the drugs. But there were used needles there. As a matter of fact, there was an incident when they themselves, the resident below me, and I guess his friends, they filled a shopping cart full of used needles, and they went to, we live like literally 20 paces from a park where children play, and they pushed the shopping cart to the park 20 paces away and dumped the shopping cart with all these used needles in the park. They had to close down the park that day. They had to call specialists to come clean it up. So it wasn't a surprise, right, to us that read the fire report, who lived in the building, that there were used needles, and there are pictures of the used needles. There's also cigarette butts all over the apartment. It was disgusting. Not kind of, it was disgusting. And there was also disassembled fire alarms. So the guy who lived below me, he undid the fire alarms, disassembled the fire alarms, and they were laying on the coffee table in the living room. And that wasn't a surprise either, because Diane and I, the other neighbors, would smell smoke coming up from his apartment. We complained, and so those weren't a surprise. So anyway, back to the question, how did the fire start? Well, if you ask me, my neighbors would say it's a meth lab explosion, a fire investigator, an electric bike explosion. But if you ask me, I would say that, I say that it was a satanic assault, right? a satanic assault orchestrated by the devil, by Azazel, the devil, Satan, Lucifer, whatever term you use to describe the enemy. So it was a satanic assault orchestrated by the devil and carried out by demons. Disembodied spirits of the Nephilim, right? The giants, the descendants of the fallen angels, the watchers. And I talk about the watchers, the fallen angels, Nephilim in Half Hour of Power, which became interrupted because of the fire. I did 3 episodes. You can go back and watch them. They're stored here on social media, on Facebook. And I have 3 more episodes that's going to come. So stay tuned in. But that's what I believe is a satanic assault orchestrated by the devil and carried out by the Nephilim, by the demons, right? And I got a scripture for you. 1 Enoch, chapter 15, verse 10 reads, "And the spirits of the giants," right? The spirits of the Nephilim, the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim, the descendants of the fallen angels, the watchers, "and the spirits of the giants afflict, oppress, destroy, attack, war, and cause trouble on earth." So that's it, right? That says it all, right? They're out there, right? We're still in the 4th world. The Hopi Maya prophecy is that there will be a 5th world, right? But right now in the 4th world, we're dealing with these disembodied spirits of the Nephilim, right? These demons, right? We're in spiritual war. But it's going to end, right? The spiritual warfare is going to take place. We will be triumphant, and the 5th world will be ushered in. Next question. What happened to the fire starter, Beto? He died. The person who started the fire passed away 3 months after the fire happened, right? It was not related to the fire. He was not injured. He was not burned in the fire. I was the only one who had life-threatening injuries from the fire. He died of something else. We don't know. There was no obituary, and I've asked many people many times. There's no obituary. There was no funeral service, but he's dead. And the fire investigator, actually when I met with the fire investigator, he told me, Beto, Gary's name, he's passed. He's dead. And so so he passed away, again, unrelated to the fire. It's sad, right? We're sad whenever anybody loses their life. But at the same time, and my neighbor Diane and I have talked about this, there was a sense of relief because I lived for 3 months with the worry, am I doing enough to stop him from doing this again, right? Because my biggest fear was that he was going to do it again. And my biggest fear was not for me, right? Because I have my mom watching over me. But my biggest fear is that, he was going to do this again. And that, God forbid, there'd be a fatality next time. And God forbid, it would be a child or a senior, right? And so I lived with that fear. So when I got the news, I got it on a Thursday night, and the fire investigator confirmed it on Friday morning. There was a sense of relief. Again, sad that somebody lost their life, but the relief that he wouldn't be able to do this again. Next question. Did the firefighters extinguish the building? Yes. As I understand, it took about 45 minutes for them to extinguish the fire, but they did extinguish the fire. Hence why they're going to restore the building and we'll be able to move in. They said about a year to 18 months it's going to take. But yes, the firefighters were able to extinguish the building. It was a mess though, right? I mean, it was lit up. I posted video of the aftermath, and you can watch it here on Facebook. But, it was a fire. It was a war zone, right? What I call a spiritual war zone. But what my neighbors call a war zone is broken glass. Everything just burned out. It was god-awful, floor burned. But yeah, if you want to watch the video, it's there. I called it the aftermath video. But again, they were able to extinguish the fire. It took about 45 minutes. It took about 20 to 25 minutes for the firefighters to reach my apartment on the 2nd floor. How do I know that? Because my neighbor Diana, who lived across the hall from me, she had video cameras pointed at her door, and her door was open when the firefighters arrived on the 2nd floor. And so she has video cameras, and they're time-stamped of the firefighters in my apartment. and then they come out of my apartment, and that was about 20 to 25 minutes after the hallway alarm went off. Fire, fire, fire. So there is no way I would have survived 20 to 25 minutes. If I had to call out, right? I had to get my mom support, right? My guardian angel to come down from heaven to help guide me out of the fire and give me the will to rise to my 2 burned feet. Because 20, 25 minutes, there's no way I would have been long gone, long burned, because I was already losing consciousness after just a couple minutes from the, collapsed lung, the cyanide poisoning, the severe 2nd-degree burns, everything, right? There's no way I would have made it without that support from my mom, from the miracle, right? I'm a walking miracle. Bethel, why did it take so long, for them to arrive and put out the fire and get to your floor and your apartment and all that? It was a 3-alarm fire, right? It was a big fire. It was a 16-unit building. As I understand, I'm not a firefighter, but as I understand, the firefighters, they had a survey, right? When they arrived, they had to survey the building, and the decision was made to enter through the roof of the building, and then, they had to go, I guess, room by apartment and everything. So by the time they reached my apartment, it's about 20, 25 minutes from when the alarms went off, which alerted them to, put on their equipment and drive over in their trucks. There's two fire stations not far from me. One's only a few blocks. The other one's, less than a quarter mile. But it does take time, right, for them to get there. Then they had to survey the building, make the decision to come down through the roof. So that's why it took time, right? So anyway, next question. We have 2 more. Bethel, have you spoken with an attorney? Quite a few people have asked this question. Yes, I've spoken at length with 5 attorneys, and then 5 more asked me to write down my story, everything that happened, and send it in. So I've communicated with 10 total. And the feedback I received, well, the big question is, in this case, who do you sue, right? Logically, you would sue the fire starter. However, in this case, the fire starter was a drug addict, and he died broke. He had no insurance, so there's nothing there, right? There's no suit to be brought forward against the fire starter. So the next thing would be to sue the electric bike manufacturer, right? I can't go after the fire starter. Let's go after the electric bike manufacturer. Here's the problem with that, or the challenge, I should say. We don't know who owned the bike, right? Could have been stolen. The guy lived below me. The people he ran around, they were known to steal bikes. Actually, one of them had approached me about buying a stolen bike. I'm like, come on, guy. So anyway, it could have been stolen. I don't deal in that type of treachery and stuff. So, but yeah, so it could have been stolen. Was it handled with care, right? Did supposedly the bike was being charged. Did the resident follow the instructions properly? Was he, doing what was supposed to be done and charge the bike? We don't know. He's passed away. We don't know if he owned the bike or stole the bike. We don't know if he followed the proper instructions and handled the bike and the battery with care. And we also don't know if there's aftermarket battery on the bike. So it could have been a Chinese battery on an American bike. We don't know that. So, these are things you need to know if you're going to pursue a suit against the electric bike manufacturer. And we don't have the answer. The person who has the answer has passed away. Is there the potential that more information could come forward? Absolutely. There are other people who were in the in his apartment when it happened. So, I'm not closing the book on more information coming, but right now, there is no more information than those questions that we have. The third alternative in a lawsuit like this would be to go after the property manager. Here's the challenge with that is that we, right, the residents, Bob, Diana, myself, and others, complained for 3 years about the resident below us because we knew, there's illegal activity going on, police were coming, there's that case of the used needles being poured into the children's park. I mean, there's a lot of reasons to evict this guy. He was smoking. You're not supposed to be smoking. You're not supposed to be using drugs in the building. Disassembled fire alarms. but the property manager was trying to evict him, but the eviction was held up in court. So that's flimsy, right? So anyhow, I decided not to pursue anything. I mean, there's really not a strong case to be made. So for my healing, I decided not to pursue any sort of lawsuit. And also, it was traumatizing. I was re-traumatizing myself every time I spoke to one of these attorneys and reliving everything. Because it's not like sharing my story here where I'm, spreading hope and inspiration. No, when you're dealing with attorneys, it's money and it's facts and it's this and it's that. And it's just like, it's re-traumatizing. So I made the decision not to pursue any sort of suit and to focus on my healing. And the attorneys I talked to said that's the right decision. They said it's a really, really hard case to make. It's not clear. And if it's re-traumatizing, forget about it. And also take the win. They told me, take the win. You're going to be 100%. You got through this. You didn't lose your vision. You didn't lose the use of your arm. You're going to be okay. And, you didn't need plastic surgery or graft surgery. So I decided to do that, right? I took the win. Last question. This is the most powerful question. Why did this happen to you, Beto? Why did this happen to you? And the person followed up with this. It wasn't karma. They said, I know it wasn't karma. You did not deserve this. And which is true, right? It wasn't karma. I hadn't done anything, so bad to deserve something this bad, right? It wasn't karma. And so here's my answer, right? Remember, I'm a spiritual warrior, so I think about these things spiritually. In the Bible, the book of Job tells the story of a man, Job, seeking righteousness. Job was tested, right? Job was tested in this story. And the story talks about how his health was tested, right? His family, his finances. I mean, financial devastation he dealt with, all kinds of problems with his health and losing family members. So Job was tested, right, on his journey, his path seeking righteousness. And so I believe why all this happened to me was that it was a test, right? Because if you watch Half Hour Power or any of my past episodes, I talk about seeking righteousness, right? So I was tested by fire, right? Hence the title of the show this week and last week, Tested by Fire. I was tested by fire. I did not attract the assault, right? And this is one of the issues with those people who call themselves law of attraction gurus, and they're going to teach you how to manifest millions of dollars and have this spectacular life of leisure and just pay them, $5,000, $10,000 to fly out for a seminar. Is that they don't tell you the other part, right, of manifesting abundance, and that's if you want to manifest long-term, you have to seek righteousness. There is no other way, and when you seek righteousness, there's going to be tests. But they don't want to talk about that because, you don't want, they're afraid that you're not going to pay them the $10,000 seminar fee to, hear the other side, about tests, right, about tests. Financial devastation, being burned in a fire. People don't want to pay $10,000 for that. And so they don't mention that. They're only telling you half the truth, right? Half the story. Anyhow, 4 years ago, my tia Irma called me. I was actually traveling on a business trip from Boston down to Raleigh, Durham. And she called me and she told me, Mijo, tonight you're going to have a dream and it's going to be very vivid. And sure enough, that night I had a dream and it was vivid. It was very vivid. And in this dream, I'm walking down Massachusetts Avenue here in Cambridge. And I was leaving Harvard Square, if you know the geography, leaving Harvard Square and heading up to Porter Square. And I just paces from leaving Harvard Square. I'm on Mass Ave, almost directly across from Harvard Law School on Mass Ave, but on the far side of Mass Ave on that sidewalk, not the near side next to the law school, but across from it on the other side. And I'm walking down, and again, it's a very vivid dream, and a young man, unbeknownst to me, is walking behind me with a pistol. And he actually has a pistol aimed right to the back of my head. And again, I don't know this. Then I hear somebody to my left scream, "What are you doing? Stop, stop." And it was another man, a little bit, more mature, not a child, but, or a young man, but, more mature man. And he stops, right? The young man's like, "Oh my God," he stops. He doesn't shoot me. And then the dream ended. But I knew at that point that, Satan, Lucifer, Azazel, the devil, didn't want me alive, right? I'm a threat. They see me as a threat. I'm exposing their tricks and their deceits, right? And through social media, I'm sharing knowledge and wisdom to become a spiritual warrior, to identify, their tricks and their treachery and their deceit, and how to overcome and seek righteousness and live a life of true abundance, right? And so I'm a threat, and I knew that 4 years ago. I had that dream. Now, it wasn't a pistol, right? It was a fire that nearly killed me. So that was a surprise, and the way it happened so fast and everything. But later, when I had time to reflect and remember the dream, it reminded me that, the assault, they had been planning the assault, right? The satanic assault, the Azazel and the Nephilim, they've been planning this because I'm a threat. I'm sharing information freely, right, on social media. I'm not charging people $10,000 for a seminar to teach half-truths, right? I'm sharing all the truth that I learned from my mom as a child growing up to be a spiritual warrior, as well as the theology and the divinity training I got when I was in seminary at Harvard and Yale. So I'm a threat. And so I'm going to end here. I do owe a debt to God for the last 3 episodes of Half Hour of Power, because the fire interrupted, right? My burn interrupted Half Hour of Power. It's meant to be 6 episodes. So 3 more are coming, so stay tuned. Rugby season, fall season, Coltrane's fall rugby season, college rugby is about to start. So I'm not sure exactly when those 3 episodes of Half Hour of Power are airing, but it's going to happen. It's a debt that I owe to God, so it's going to be out there. So stay tuned for the ads and whatnot. And I'm going to end now. Thank you for watching. Whether you're watching live or the recorded video, I'm very grateful for you. I hope you have a blessed rest of your Sunday. And yes, ciao. Bye-bye. See you again soon, I hope.